Back to the channel, everybody. This is the last video in this three-part series. So usually every recipe I've made so far, I have made recipes that I already knew how to make or that I had done before I videoed it. This time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to make a bread that I have not personally made before, so we're going to see how that goes. I'm going to go let you watch me make mistakes or anything else that may occur, and it may turn out horrible, but we're going to do it anyway. That's the whole point of this channel, is that it's just not about knowing things, it's about learning things. So this is going to be what they call a cinnamon raisin swirl bread. I think Pepperidge Farm from the store makes a version, but this is going to be homemade. And all the ingredients are laid out in front of me. You have brown sugar, vanilla, ground cinnamon, raisins. I'm going to use cane syrup as my sugar. Now the sugar could be honey, it could be just normal granulated sugar. It could even be molasses if you like that kind of sulfur-back taste to it. That'd be a little bit more tangy. And of course that beautiful ground hard red wheat that we just did a video on milling and sifting. So those are our ingredients. We are of course going to have a scale, a digital scale, our 3 set of mixing bowls, and our 2 bread pans. I know my bread pans don't match. Maybe someday I will buy some. And some olive oil for the pans when we're getting ready to bake it. Now this is a low temperature bake. So this is not one that you bake really hot, mainly because of the raisins and the brown sugar. You don't want to burn them. So usually this is baked between 360 and 375. I think I'm going to go right in the middle and do this at 370. But I'm going to go ahead and get everything organized and we will get started. So, welcome back. There is one thing I forgot in the ingredients list. That is active dry yeast, just normal yeast. This is a yeast bread. But I will make sure that the entire recipe that I'm making here, as well as a conversion for a single loaf if you prefer, is available in the description below. First thing we're going to do though is we're going to get our yeast mixture put together. So we're going to zero out our bowl. We're also going to use this nifty little thermometer, water thermometer, to check the temperature of our water. Remember, we're looking at for anything between 100 and 110. Still just a little warm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of cool water. Not a lot. Just to cool it down a little bit. You don't want to hurt the yeast. As long as you don't go over technically 120, but I do like to keep it between 100 and 110. Now we're sitting at about 110. So, close enough. And set that aside. So, first thing we're going to do, this particular recipe is going to be a 65% hydration. The reason for that is this is supposed to be a denser bread, somewhere between pastry and bread. So it is going to be a little bit drier than my usual dough recipes. So we're going to be aiming for 65% hydration. And because we're going to be using 1,000 grams of flour, that means that we're going to want 650 grams of water. So I'm going to take my water. I'm going to add 650 grams. That's good. Then I'm going to take my sweetener that I'm going to use, which is cane syrup. You can use granulated sugar, you can use honey, you can use molasses, but I've been interested in trying just using cane syrup. So we're going to use just cane syrup, and we're going to do 70 grams of cane syrup. So 70 grams. Now this is more than you need to activate the yeast. Technically, you only need 10 grams to activate the yeast. So we're adding a little bit more just for flavor. 70 grams of yeast, or grams of cane syrup, just like that. I'm going to grab my dough whisk. I'm going to mix this together, just like that. Perfect. Now, your yeast is going to be anywhere between 1.5% or 1% and 0.5%. Me personally, I like to shoot for 1%, so that would be 10 grams. Doesn't sound like a lot, but yeast is very, very light, so 10 grams is plenty. Even if it's at 9 or 11, you're not going to hurt anything. Just try and keep it in that range. Just like that. I'm going to mix this together until it looks slightly frothy. Get that yeast broken up into the water and the cane syrup so I can start activating and fermenting. Just like that. Nice and easy. Now, usually at this point I would start on my dry ingredients, but because raisins are very dry, it recommends that you soak them. But what I'm going to try, and this may not work, it may work, who knows. What I'm going to try is actually soaking it in the yeast mixture, because we're just going to mix it into the dough anyway. What we want is between 200 and 250 grams of raisins. Now, raisins are surprisingly heavy, but I'm going to shoot for about 230. Add our raisins until we get about 230. 229, that's close enough. Put our raisins away. We're just gonna break them up there in the water, let them soak. I think that will actually add some of that raisin flavor, at least I hope so, to the actual dough. Because if you were to soak these in warm water, it would give kind of a sweet water. It takes some of the sweetness and puts it in the water. So I'm hoping that's what I'm achieving here. It may go horribly wrong, it may not. So we'll find out together. Put that aside. Now we're going to work on our dry ingredients. So, for our dry ingredients, we are going to add, as soon as I get this zeroed, we're going to go ahead and add 1,000 grams of our freshly milled hard red wheat. Now I will try and mix Coruscant into this recipe if it goes well this time around. It's just a lot easier to learn a recipe using a hard red wheat or like an organic bread flour, just because Coruscant adds a level of complexity, and that's not where I want to start learning something new. So we're going to start out with our 1,000 grams of flour. Should be, if I calculated right, pretty close to most of what I milled, which looks like it is. Okay. Set our flour aside. Going to go ahead and grab our salt. I use pickling salt, which is just sea salt without iodine. No additives or anything to it. It is just salt. Salt. Usually you would use salt to 2% of your dough weight or of your flour weight. Me personally, for this one, I'm going to back it off just a little bit and do 15 grams. I don't want it to come out in the flavor too much. It's just to keep the dough tension correct. Just like that. Okay. Get salt everywhere. Like I said, everything in this recipe will be in the description for both single loaf and this double loaf recipe. Now, with the salt and the flour, I'm actually going to add 1 gram to 2 grams, which isn't very much, but you don't need very much, of ground cinnamon. So cinnamon is very, very strong in flavor, so you don't need a whole lot of it. You just want a couple of grams, just like that. Okay. Now, we also need a little bit of olive oil, about 20 grams. You can add this to either the liquid or the dry. Actually, I'm probably going to add it to the liquid because it's going to be easier. Like I said, I'm learning this recipe, so I apologize if things aren't as organized. I'm just going to add 20 grams of olive oil. You can also use butter, but I just like using olive oil. For the most part, there is butter, I believe, in this recipe. There is butter in this recipe, which is another thing I forgot. But like I said, learning the process. So we got our oil. So we're going to zero that out. Now we're going to mix our dry and our wet ingredients together. Go ahead and wash this smaller bowl because I'm going to need it. Off real quick. Alright, so we're going to mix all that together. Realizing I did not organize as well as I thought I did before I started this. It's okay, bear with me. Learning a new recipe, so you get to watch all of the confusion and stuff in real time. I believe it's better to learn the process that way anyway. See things that you might run into in your own when you're making this recipe yourself. And just try and get all that dry flour incorporated. Don't have to be perfect. You just don't want there to be a whole bunch of excess flour or clumps or anything. So just slowly work it. This is going to be a little bit tighter than we're used to working with, mainly because the hydration is lower in this style of bread. Just like that. I'm actually going to work this with my hands just a little bit. Move it over into another bowl. So, move my dough whisk. Grab my smaller bowl, some water, so I can keep my hands from getting horribly messy. And I'm just going to work what's remaining of this dough, get all the clumps out of it. The raisins make it a little more complicated to feel if there's clumps and lumps in it, because that's what the raisins are. We're going to get this gathered up, like so. Work it into itself. Nice and easy. We're going to move it to a smaller bowl, which will make it easier for me to work with, like so. Wash my hands real quick. Come off. Grab one of my handy dandy little shower caps. We're going to let this rest for 30 minutes. Let it autolyze. Let the flour soak up all the water. And in the meantime, while that's doing that, we're going to go ahead and get the brown sugar vanilla and cinnamon swirl mix ready. So stand by for that. Alright, so while our dough is autolyzing, we're going to go ahead and pre-make our swirl. I'm just going to do that in a simple bowl. So grab a bowl. Now for the swirl, like I said, all these ingredients I will put in the description below the video. In the swirl, you're going to want about 7 tablespoons of melted butter. You're not going to use all of it. It's just better to have a little extra. And this is going to be a rub. You have ground cinnamon, vanilla, and brown sugar. So what we're going to do, and this is going to get your fingertips a little messy, don't worry about it. What we're going to do is, what we have to realize is that this is going to be a 10-to-1 mix of cinnamon and brown sugar. So for every gram of cinnamon, we're going to add 10 grams of brown sugar to balance the taste. So we'll go ahead and grab our scale. Get our bowl on there. I'm going to zero it out. And I'm going to start with 80 grams brown sugar, which isn't as much as you think it is. Brown sugar is very heavy. So nice 80 grams. Like that. Brown sugar is just basically cane sugar and molasses. So get our sugar, and we're going to zero our scale out. And because we have 80 grams of brown sugar, we're going to add 8 grams of cinnamon. Just nice amount. Fancy. Don't worry, this isn't too much cinnamon. The butter and the vanilla actually break this down a little bit. We're just going to mix this together, generally with our hands, nothing fancy. Because the purpose of this is, once we're done with the dough, we press that dough out flat into a rectangle about the width of our bread pans. And then we brush it, well, rub it with the melted butter. And then you're going to press this into the dough. You don't want to just sprinkle it on there. You're going to want to press it into the dough. So we mix this together. Just like that. And then you're going to add just a couple of drops of vanilla extract. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is really, really potent. You don't have to add a ton. You're talking just a couple of drips. Just a drip or two. All right. Just like that. We're just going to mix that all together. Get it spread in there. Takes a little bit of work because there's not much vanilla in there, so you just got to kind of move it side to side, back and forth, pinch it together. Just work it in there, just like that. Now you have your mixture for your swirl and your melted butter. So now we're going to set those aside. And once the dough is done autolyzing, we will get started on working the dough. This will be a kneaded dough. Usually you see me fold. I prefer folding dough. But because of the raisins, that's not really an option. Because with the raisins in there breaking up the space, trying to fold it as I pick it up, it's probably just going to tear. And I don't want to do that. So this will be kneaded for about 10 to 15 minutes, old school style here on my board. Or maybe in the bowl, depends on how easy to work the dough is. But once it's ready for that, we'll be back. So the dough is done autolyzing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to knead it. And I'm going to use just a little bit of water to wet my hands. Let me gather it up. It's going to be a little bit more complex, I would think, because of all the raisins. But I'm just going to do a normal knead. I'm not going to try and do folds. I mean, I may do one out of habit. We'll see. But we're just going to grab a corner, knead it into the center, and keep working around the dough. Wet our hand if we need to. And all we're doing is we're trying to make that gluten strengthen up, hopefully enough to hold all these raisins. So for a normal kneading, usually you would do this for 10 or 15 minutes. That's just to get to that same shape that we usually do in folds. Now, folding, in my experience, and you know, other people may have other experiences, but in my experience doing the folding technique gives you a fluffier dough at the end of the day, at the end product. But a kneaded dough can be just as good. You just need to work that dough until it's a nice tense ball that you can shape. All you're doing is making lattices out of that gluten structure that we always talk about. You're just gonna work that dough. You can even start going the opposite direction if you want to. What you're trying to do is make a lattice work of all of that gluten. That way it holds the shape that you want. Otherwise it'll just be flat. So we're just gonna knead the dough for a good 10-15 minutes. I may speed this part up, put a little music over it, but who knows? Maybe I'll leave it in there as whole. And I can already feel the dough isn't sticking to me anymore. It's easy for me to work. It's not sticking to the bowl. And that's a good sign. We're starting to get a nice, good gluten structure. You'll feel it start to tense up. You can't pull it as far as you would before. I am a little concerned, just a little bit, about the raisins. I know this is how the recipe says to do it. Me personally, I'm starting to think this is going to make keeping it from tearing a little difficult. If I do this recipe again and make another video on it, I may actually look at doing this during the swirl process and maybe sprinkle the raisins in the swirl before we roll it. Maybe that would work better. I'm not sure. I just kind of wanted to get this recipe, try this recipe out, see if it's good flavor-wise and everything. Then I can always come back, do another video on any modifications I made, you know, link back to this video and be like, okay, this is what I learned for this recipe that works better or doesn't. It's all part of it. It's also a part of being an engineer in a way. Iteration. This is the first iteration. New knowledge taken. It's like, well, can I improve on this? It's usually what an engineer asks themselves. Can this be improved? Can it be better? Can it be easier? Can it be more efficient? Stuff like that. And I just try and keep that same mindset with every task that I'm doing. You've seen it in my garden video. There's been many iterations of things I've done in the garden. Many iterations of things I've done on the house. We'll go over a couple of those in a later video. Like how I built the shutters has modified a little bit. I'll actually do a video on me making those at some point because I'm only about halfway done. I know it's only been about 6 or 7 minutes, but the dough is getting so tight that every time I pull it, it actually starts to tear. Just telling me that it is pretty much where I need it to be. What I've learned is that having a general time for a process is good, but especially in baking, cooking, other things, you'll find out that you will know by feel when the dough is ready and when it's not. Right now, this dough is so tight that every time I pull on it, it really tries to tear itself as opposed to being kneaded. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the bulk rise, the bulk ferment. So just kind of pat it down a little bit. We're going to take our little cover, cover it up just like that. And we're going to leave it for about an hour to an hour and 30 minutes, or until it is doubled in size. It could take, I've seen it take as short as 40 minutes. But just keep an eye on it, roughly an hour. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. And then we'll come back, we'll get them separated, and we'll start the shaping. So, welcome back. We got our bulk ferment done. So, it's definitely doubled in size. From here, we're going to move on. We're going to split it into two different doughs, and then from there we will move on to shaping the loaves and getting them in the pans. So first thing I'm going to do is get this out on a lightly dusted board, and I just use a tea diffuser. I'll put a link to these as well. They work really well for this. And just get a little bit of my flour here. Don't get too much, otherwise you won't be able to sift it out. You're just going to dust it a little bit. Keep it from sticking to your board. Don't have to be fancy. Just enough to keep it from sticking. We don't want to over dust the outside of this one. Mainly because we don't want to dry it out. The raisins are already going to make it a little more complicated. There's no need to make the outside dry where it'll crack easy. Take our little dough scraper. Get our dough gathered up. It's holding together pretty well, even with the raisins. Try not to tear it. So now that we got it out of our bowl, what we're actually going to do is take our scale, set our scale down. We're going to zero the bowl out, put it back, get our total dough weight, which is about what I wanted. Right at about 2,000. We're going to try and split this in half. Roughly. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not doing science here. Roughly cut it in half. 1,030. That is close enough. So, what we're going to do with these now is I'm going to get just a little bit more flour dusted out. This. We're going to do that swirl part. In order to do that, you need to be able to press this flat. So, just dust it out like that. Gently try and keep it about the width of your bread pan. Just slowly press it outward. It's actually holding together really well. Just press it outward. Try and keep it pretty rectangular in shape. It's actually holding up way better than I expected. It's really good. Pressed out. Like that. Looks pretty good. We do want the swirls to be, pretty close to even. We're going to take our melted butter in our brown sugar mixture with cinnamon and vanilla. What I'm going to try and do is just use my hand for the butter. Just enough to where I can coat. May have used a bit much here. Unfortunate. That shouldn't hopefully hurt anything too bad. So the excess drip off of it. We're just going to make this sheen. apologize, everybody. For some reason, the camera stopped recording in the middle of all that, and because I have no further dough to work with, I'm going to try and describe as best as I can what I did right after I spread the butter. So when I spread the butter across the dough, got it even, I would take pinches of the brown sugar and just evenly dust it across the top of the dough and press it into the dough. You want it to be embedded in the dough. If you don't embed it in the dough, it'll delaminate when you bake it, more like a cinnamon roll. Not that that's a bad thing. You just press it in, and then you roll it from the end inward. Each time you roll over itself, you press. That way you're trying to laminate it onto itself as you're rolling it. Stitch it together on your ends and on your seam, and then put it into your pans like this, which I greased with olive oil. So unfortunately I have no other dough, so I'm going to have to make another video about this at some point, but hopefully, seeing as this is my first try at this recipe anyway, hopefully you got the idea, and we'll let this rise to about a ½ inch above to 1 inch above the pan before we bake it at 370 for 35 to 40 minutes. But we will get back to that as soon as these are risen. I apologize for the technical difficulty on this one. As we can see, the doughs have risen, ready to go in the oven. So I figured out what happened. My phone actually ran out of storage space on the SIM card, so hopefully the little interactive tutorial about pressing the brown sugar and rolling the loaf will suffice, because unfortunately this is not the kind I can just press back out and repeat, just because of the nature of the swirl and everything else on the inside. So I will make an appendment video at some point. I don't know when I'm going to make this recipe next, but I will make an appendment video. I will append the video at some point with that process. But our oven is preheated. We're going to bake these at 370 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. And let's go ahead and put those in the oven, and we'll see how everything comes out. So, bread's about done. Hopefully the technical mishap, I hope everybody still got the idea of how to shape and form the loaf. One of the points of the channel is to watch as I learn things, and well, running out of space on a phone is something to learn, I suppose. So let's go ahead and get the bread out. Looks like it's just got 10 seconds left. Let's get that bread out. We'll take a look at what it looks like. First one. So they are relatively golden brown. Looks like lamination's held up pretty well. There's a couple of areas. Hopefully they don't spread too deep when we go to cut them. They do sound a little bit more dense than my normal loaves, but apparently that's how it's supposed to sound. So we're gonna let these sit and cool for about an hour. Let them come down to room temperature while the steam inside finishes setting the crumb on the inside. And I'll be back in a little bit, in about an hour, and we will cut one open and we will see what it looks like. So, bread is cooled. We're going to go ahead and cut one of these, see if we made something beautiful or if we made a disaster. Win, lose, or draw. Here we go. Cut's really nice. Okay.
does look like we had a delamination in the center. The outside looks relatively good though. Looks like it could have baked just a little bit longer. Sure, it'll still taste really good. Actually, I'm going to cut this second one just because I'm curious if they both delaminated and whether I got to change something. They both cut really well. So they both delaminated a little bit in the center. So not exactly the outcome I was looking for, but I will definitely be trying this one again. See if I can get that lamination to come out right. But still looks like it'll probably be good with a little bit of butter and a little bit of just a little bit of butter, really. So that's a first try at a cinnamon raisin swirl bread. I will probably try this again. I don't know. Probably won't be too soon from now, but we'll definitely try this again and see if we can get a better outcome next time. So, unfortunately, things didn't quite go to plan. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut a slice of one of these, and just for tasting purposes, that nice hard red wheat did make it where this, it's a really nice flour. It did cut really well. I'm going to cut this in half, leave some of that for my friend Jake. Wow. Oh, that is good. Yeah, the flavor is definitely really good. Came out moist, soft, like it's supposed to. The only problem is those delaminations. So I'll try this recipe again. It'll probably be a little while. I do want to get some more home improvement and gardening things up on the channel before I keep continuing with cooking. But apologies for the technical difficulties, but this is all about learning. This is not about perfection. It's about learning to do things. So I will see everybody in the next one, and I hope you enjoy.